Dread is my first Metroid, and I'm almost convinced that it's one of Nintendo's best IPs, and if nothing else, it's definitely the most mature. Before I do my brief review and give a score at the end of the video, I want to hear from you guys. What's your favorite Metroid game and why? And do you plan on picking up Metroid Prime 4 in December? Because this game is convincing me to pick it up. Getting into the nitty gritty, I really enjoyed the boss fights. They're incredible, dare I say immaculate. I love that there was challenge right out the gate. There's pressure, there's trial and error while you're trying to figure out what you're supposed to be doing. And the bosses were pretty aggressive to where, like, if you weren't able to dodge or figure out what's happening, then you would get overwhelmed and you would die. And I feel like a lot of games post like Breath of the Wild are, you know, presented very well, but they're lacking the challenge that I would like. And I'm not saying I want an Elden Ring experience or anything crazy like that, but, you know, just some pushback, some pressure, and Dread really delivered on that. While we're talking about bosses, the mini bosses and other enemies in between, I love their design. It was more intense, not necessarily scary, but definitely a big contrast compared to a lot of the kind of kid-friendly things that we see today. I really love that Metroid stuck to this kind of grotesque, I guess, if you will, appearance of the enemies, and I think that's one of the things that makes it stand out. I love it. Now, a story does exist, but you kind of get like an info dump at the beginning of the game, which is my first one, so I don't even know what's happening. And then a lot of it is told through the Adam dude, who's like your AI partner.
Stands for Expert Planetary Multiform Mobile Identifier.
Which, as you can see, is very monotone and very flat, and he's really just talking to you, and you don't really have a lot of back and forth with him at all. So it kind of falls flat by quite a bit, but I think the action and exploration parts of the game are so good that like it didn't really bother me. Plus, the length of the story was pretty short, so like that also made it more tolerable. The graphics are clean for me. I mean, I feel like my expectations aren't too high for like a 2D game, but they still looked polished, and there was a lot of detail to the stuff happening in the background. I will say that in like the spaceship parts of the game, or like the underground base or whatever, it does kind of feel a little bit samey, but then as you get deeper into the story, it kind of branches into like a jungle-ish type area, the surface, and then a really cool underwater area that kind of really breaks up the monotony, if you will. The gameplay was in a weird place for me because I enjoyed the exploration, going from room to room fighting enemies and kind of getting your upgrades and, you know, moving through the game. But you also had this cool twist of this cat and mouse experience when you go into like the Emmy zones, these powerful robots that you can't kill without like a super special upgrade, which is a lot of work to get. So for the most part, you have to run away from them when they show up, because if you don't, they'll grab you, and like you're most likely going to get insta killed from the grab, but you can break free, which feels really satisfying to do. But it's very hard, and in most cases, you will die. Bitch, he followed me inside. But I really did like that element of the game. Sometimes it was frustrating when I was trying to just pass through an area to get to where I actually needed to go. But it wasn't too bad. I really did enjoy it. It was very refreshing because it's not something you see often in games. The last time I saw it was like really Resident Evil with like Nemesis and like Mr. X. But what makes the gameplay weird is just that like what I described to you is all that you do for like the next 10 to 11 hours, and it doesn't deviate from that at all. But it's fun in a way that it doesn't get boring, but the game is short enough too to where you don't get burned out either. But I think if the game had been longer, it would have gotten a little tedious because there's like no side activities or anything. You can explore and find like rocket upgrades, but like that's actually really boring and unsatisfying. So yeah, but I think because the game was short, the gameplay was fine as well as the story. I think that affected both. But I think if it had been longer, then it would have gotten a little bit stale. Last but not least, we got navigation. This was the biggest thorn in my side because you could explore a section and then you get your upgrade, and now it's time to backtrack and figure out where you need to go. Now, the game does tell you early on about blocks that are invisible and how you have to just shoot randomly in corners, which I do not like that. I think that's a terrible idea, honestly. Shooting random corners to progress, and the problem with me was that in some sections you wouldn't need to do that at all, and I would go so long without doing it that I forget about the invisible blocks, and then I get stuck in a part where like I can't figure out where to go, and I'm like shooting all the walls and stuff, and maybe I just missed that one corner, and I end up spending like 30 minutes before like I get frustrated and I have to go Google it or ask somebody for help because I was streaming the game. And what makes it worse is that they introduce like an ability like halfway to like maybe 60 to 70% of the way through the game where you can actually do a scan and then see through walls and see the blocks. I feel like that's the first thing you should get if you're going to introduce invisible blocks. I feel like I didn't lose a ton of time, but I definitely lost time, and that was frustrating, not knowing where to go, or I keep going from place to place and I keep getting hit with like I'll get to a new spot, but now I need some kind of blue spin charge move to get through it, or I need to be able to like bomb dash across like the pitfall blocks and stuff. Like I keep finding new places to go, but I can't go anywhere because I can't find the upgrades. And like that part was really killing me. It definitely hurt the overall score for the game. And of course, some of that's user error, but I definitely think they could have did things differently. Some people will say, oh, all the Metro games have terrible navigation. That's not an excuse. In 2021, like we can make a decent map. But the map was decent itself for the most part, but just figuring out where to go next was really tricky. And I feel like there are a lot of games out there who came out before this game who do a great job putting out a map and showing you where you're supposed to go next. But that's all I had for you guys. I thought the game was very fun. It was short. I will say it was lacking in content outside of the story. Like there was not a whole lot of reason to explore elsewhere, but the boss fights were fun. It was cool to see Samus's moves in action because I've heard my first exposure to Samus was through Smash Bros. So it's kind of it was cool to see those moves being used in game, and then also seeing just how badass Samus is and just seeing how OP she is as well. Ultimately, though, I gave the game a 6.8 out of 10. I had to dock like 2 points because the navigation part was just so brutal that I had to take 2 points off for that. And then it was lacking content. It was just a simple, straightforward single story experience with about 10 hours of gameplay for $40, or I think it was $60. I had to Google it. It was $60. And I feel like that is a lot of money for a 10-hour experience. Although there was nostalgia reasons behind it, and it was kind of a stream request from a viewer, like that enough for me was to play the game. But if I was like by myself, I don't know if I'd pick it up for $60 for a 10-hour experience. But you know, that's why I had to give it a 6.8. I still think it is a great game. There are a couple of things that could be worked on. It's a little rough around the edges, but overall, I did have fun with it. If you made it this far, hit that like button. I want to hear from you down in the comments. What do you think of the game? Did you enjoy the review? We'll be picking up Metroid. Make sure to hit that follow and sub button for me. It helps a ton. Y'all stay safe. Peace.